Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Justice and Pieces guest speaker series. And today's guest is Luba Dinkova. And Luba, maybe perhaps you can introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your practice and a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Luba Dinkova, and my background is from Bulgaria, and I've been in the business of immigration specifically for the past almost 6 years. I attended Humber College for my paralegal diploma. Then I decided I'll go into immigration. I did my immigration certificate there as well. I was the first one for the 7-hour seating for the exam for paralegal. Thanks God, I passed it successfully. And then I got licensed for with ICCRC as an immigration consultant. I worked in a firm which had an immigration department in Toronto, Pace Law Firm. And I spent there about 5 years. And for the past 1 year, I've been running my own practice, fairly successful, I could say. And that's about it for me for now.
So a lot of my students, and I think this might be the last of the group because the immigration consulting program is going to a 2-year university program out of Queens, I think, as of January the 1st. So what made you, after you got your paralegal license, say, hey, I want to go back to school and get the immigration consulting diploma as well?
So as part of the paralegal licensing, you do have to complete placement in a law firm. So I ended up applying in a law firm, which was close by my home at the time. And I did end up in an immigration department of that law firm. The person who invited me for an interview was very experienced in the area. He was not a lawyer, he was not a consultant, but he was working for the immigration department for the government for many, many years. And he made me like immigration very much. So I needed only 2 more credits besides 2 more courses to complete besides my paralegal courses in order to obtain certificate in immigration consulting, and I thought it was very worth it.
Now, after that, you went and were working in a firm. How was that experience like? And then we'll certainly contrast it with running your own practice.
I would I would suggest to all the people who are graduating to go into working for a firm as a start, because the hands-on experience of working on cases, it's very much different than than studying from a book or from materials which are written down, or just reading the law guides and regulations. I would definitely suggest to every graduate to go into a firm, not only for their placement, because even immigration consultants do have to have a placement hours in order to obtain their certificate, but go on, find a job, and so you can learn from much more experienced people. In my opinion, after 5 years, 6 years in the field, I would say that in immigration, you have to be creative in order to be successful. There are many cases that the facts of the case are falling off all type of requirements. But if you are able to be creative and make your case and provide good arguments, you have a very high chance of being successful.
So after you were working in the firm there, then you decided, you're saying about a year ago, to go and start your own practice. What was that decision like, and what led to you to saying, hey, I want to establish my own firm now?
I would say that maybe the freedom that you would have. Yes, obviously, you have much more responsibilities on your plate, such as marketing yourself, getting your own clients, trying to keep up with all the updates. You don't really have all the colleagues that you have at first hand at a firm to reach out to if you have any specific question. I would say it was a tough decision, but risk does pay off. And if you're consistent with what you do and you keep good connections with people, and networking, I would say it's very important for that type of work in order to be able to get more clients and have like a steady stream of clients.
Now, a year into your practice, what if you could go back a year? Is there anything you would have sort of started off with differently, or what did you learn from having a year under your belt now?
I would say that um, focusing more on marketing, even though word of mouth referrals are probably the best referrals that one can get, and probably not only for immigration services, but any kind of business. And but still marketing my company and putting my name out there, being more consistent of that, most likely would have brought more clients on my side.
So I'm not sure how well, if you go back to your your studies there with marketing and how it's integrated. I know in paralegal schools they have a course on practice management, but what can you share about that experience now, kind of doing it on your own, that you can advise students who may be thinking about setting up their own practice one day about the importance of marketing and that you've got from practical experience?
From practical experience, I would say that social media is pretty much the key marketing tool that you can have right now. I've been focusing on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Mainly, I created a Facebook page for my company, and I'm trying to keep that page up to date with the constant changes that immigration has. I have considered going and completing some kind of marketing course that would help me enhance my knowledge on that topic, and possibly be beneficial to my own practice, and having better idea of how marketing works, because I would say that marketing is a totally different world. I have tried to keep my marketing to a very minimal, like financial wise, because at the end of the day, when you're running your own business, you do have a budget that you have to work with. And if definitely there are more tech savvy people than I am, and they'll be much more advanced in all this. But there is a way of learning about it, and it's a good option, I would say, for people that have no experience in marketing, such as me, to go and explore, let's say, a course or a certificate, if they don't have the finances to pay someone to do their marketing for them.
You mentioned LinkedIn and certainly Instagram and Facebook. Related to marketing is always networking. Now, for students, I mean, they're not necessarily marketing their firms yet because they're still students. But what advice can you have about using those platforms to network and build relationships with potential clients down the road or potential employers?
Yes, I would say that's a good. Basically, in nowadays with the whole pandemic, your social media and internet is your only way of working, because in-person meetings are very limited in events where you can go and meet people. But yeah, I would say that that's a good place to start. I have many clients who have been my connections on LinkedIn. It's a good platform because it's a business platform type of thing. And if they're not my clients or they've been my clients, they would refer somebody, and that person can go on there and can see my history of what I've done and what kind of work I do at the moment, and I can assist them that way.
Okay, so let's talk about your practice there. So I know you have both the licenses. Are you predominantly doing immigration or are you doing a mix of both? What are the types of cases that you're typically taking on?
I work only in immigration cases. Unfortunately, there was no area for paralegal where it got me interested to learn more. Uh, In the firm that I was working for about 5 years, there were many different departments dealing with accident benefits, slip and falls, and that wasn't my type of law that I would like to go into. Yes, I've focused mainly on immigration, and I'm happy with that. I haven't really looked back. Um, I do maintain my license just because I spent a lot of money and time and effort to get it. So I do maintain my license valid. And besides being a notary now, I was a commissioner for a number of years. Being a notary public now, I don't really do anything else or use my license for anything else.
All right, so what are the kinds of immigration matters that you typically take on? And maybe you could give us a little bit of a background about them.
So I focus mostly on skilled workers, people who are in Canada, Canadian experience class, or people that are outside. I do family sponsorships of all kinds, spouses, children, parents, other relatives. I do a lot of humanitarian compassionate cases. For these are the type of cases where the applicant does fall out from all the requirements of a certain program, and they cannot really meet any in any of the programs, and they have some humanitarian compassionate reason why they should remain in Canada or why they should come here. They either have family members. I do work closely with colleagues on business cases such as LMIAs, LMIA owner operators, establishing new businesses, provincial programs, provincial nomination programs, which have various streams. And also the firm that I have worked in the past, they do focus a lot on citizenship by investment for other countries as well. So when there are clients that are interested, we do work together on such cases.
So right now with COVID-19, how is that impacting the work that you're doing with respect to applications or potentially hearings at the Immigration and Refugee Board?
I would say that at the beginning, when the whole pandemic started, let's say it was like mid to end of March, for the following few months, like April and May, even June, work was much slower than any other time. And I would say that past July, it has started to pick up again since Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada started inviting people from overseas once again to immigrate to Canada. Processing times for many of the applications have been much longer than what they were at the beginning of the year. But people are coping, and I would say that the Immigration Department of Canada is trying to work very hard to accommodate everybody. And so the way we're working from home, they're working the same way. So everyone is working together on on working things out and having a proper process and a fair process to the applicants.
Now, the Immigration and Refugee Board has been obviously a little ahead of times to an extent because certainly people are overseas when they have to testify or be called as witnesses, and you'd have the teleconferencing. Have you noticed anything different in terms of, I mean, I'm not sure if you've had anything in recent months before the board with respect to how it's being conducted? Are they using Zoom, for example, or is it something different?
I personally don't have experience in the Immigration and Refugee Board at all, just because it was not, it hasn't been my thing to go and be a public speaker kind of thing. But the colleagues that we communicate and keep in touch on regular basis, and the things that I've been keeping up to date is that yes, they are using video calls, Zoom, in order to perform their testimonies or interview somebody who is abroad.
Now, what about your clients now? I would think predominantly are they from overseas that you're communicating with, or are they people here that need to um, perhaps bring no, a spousal sponsor or something? Where are your how are you communicating with your clients right now?
I would say that like for the past 3, 4 months, mainly my clients have been within Canada. I do have few clients who are overseas. Obviously, overseas we communicate through. I'm available on anything: WhatsApp, Viber, Facebook, anything that they can think of. I am available to speak to them. Emails, in Canada, if it's someone who is not afraid to meet in person, I'm more than willing to meet with my clients in person because I feel that the personal touch and seeing someone eye to eye, it's much better. I understand that sometimes people may be not afraid but not feel comfortable due to the pandemic to meet in person. I'm available for Zoom calls, any type of video calls, and I try to accommodate my clients um, at best.
So for those who would have normally come in person and are now doing it on Zoom, have you noticed a difference in how you have to conduct those client interviews? Are there things you're doing differently because you don't have that face-to-face connection?
I wouldn't say so. I try to reassure my clients that the fact that we're not meeting in person and we're doing a phone call or a video call doesn't change their situation, doesn't change the way I'm going to look at my client. And I reassure them that their case will be taken care of as well as it was if we were in person meeting. And all the work that needs to be done and all the issues that needs to be addressed will be taken care of. As always.
Now, certainly, I do have students who are potentially going to be dual licensees and or may already have the immigration consulting background and now are looking to add the paralegal and perhaps there's still some, maybe not as much as before, who will undertake the Queen's program there or over a couple of years, or if they speak French out in Quebec there. But any in terms of going through some of the applications you've done, what have you if you noticed in terms of preparation? What's important to avoid making any mistakes, or how do you navigate such an important part, right? Because everyone's trying to come through you to come to Canada, whether for a skilled worker or for reuniting with their family that are over here or any other reason.
I have learned from my own errors and mistakes through the years, and believe me, when I'm putting in an application, I go to it 2, 3 times to make sure there are no typos because sometimes one different digit or a different letter could change the outcome of the application to be a rejection or to cause some further issues that will have to be addressed. I'm a person, I'm a human, I've done mistakes. And the thing is with immigration, if you notice your mistake or an error um, very soon after your submission, and definitely you need to advise your client about it, you could always reach out to immigration, explain to them what the situation is, and they'll give you a step-by-step process of what needs to be done in order for this to be fixed. I I haven't really had clients that were furious about my mistakes or errors I've done, and I've always made up for this at the end. Like make sure you get them a positive result if there is no any other issues involved in the process. Again, we are humans and we do make mistakes, but as long as you acknowledge a mistake as soon as you find out about it, the sooner the better. um, but checking once, twice, 3 times if you have to, because at the end of the day it is someone's life, and they are looking up to you to come to Canada and start a better life for them.
is there any tips on kind of how to, is it just mostly reviewing it over and over again, or do you have any kind of special advice about how to ensure that you don't have those types of small mistakes that may not appear to the eye when you review it the second time or third time?
So I do have an assistant from time to time that helps me out, and that's one way of doing it. Obviously, when you're starting up, if you cannot afford to pay somebody, even giving it to a colleague or to a friend, or just to look at the spellings of everything and proper passport numbers, which are these are some of the most important details, like name spelling, passport numbers, dates of birth, citizenships, and all that stuff. You can have them, you can have like a second person review all this and make sure that it's done correctly. But usually after I complete my draft, I have the client go over it, review it, because at the end of the day, it's their signature on the bottom of the form. It's You are the representative on file, but it's their signature on there. Yes, you do have responsibilities, but it's better having the person whose life is on the line, that you're trying to assist them, and they know their story best, to go through all the forms and make sure that they're correct. Otherwise, if let's say you're missing a document when you've submitted a package, as soon as you get an application number, let's say if it was submitted through mail, you could always add a document through an online platform that they have.
All right, so I'm going to take some questions from the students right now. I see there's a couple here in the chat. What are some of your greatest accomplishments or achievements of your practice thus far?
I would say, if we're talking about cases, I would say that I've done a number of cases under self-employment category, and these are very unique people who are either artists, authors, or they're working within some kind of cultural activity where they're looking to establish here as the same. And I've done quite a few successful ones, which I'm very proud of. The other applications that I've done successfully are usually humanitarian compassionate consideration, because these are people in like with special circumstances they need to address. And I have done quite a few which were successful. And basically, the majority of these applications are you're reuniting families in Canada. If let's say there was a family member left behind in the home country where they cannot join and they cannot qualify under any other program. So it feels very um, satisfying inside to know that you've helped a family be together and be happy.
Another question is, what are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome in your practice?
I would say changes in immigration, changing forms constantly, updates. You really need to stay up to date. And to tell you the truth, I've been very fortunate to have few senior consultants who are still in the field, and we do exchange information at all times. Let's say I'm currently situated in Kitchener-Waterloo, and I was very happy that there was like a network for immigration consultants in KW, where we get together once every so often and we discuss cases. We have a WhatsApp group where everyone can reach out at any point. So having the network, even for of people who are within your field and people that you can reach out to for advice, for suggestion, because sometimes in immigration there's an announcement, but it hasn't really been put in effect. So you're not really sure, is that the law now? Is that the way it should be done? And maybe someone else has had the experience that they can share with you. So I would say that having a good network, and keeping up to date probably is going to be the major thing in immigration.
There's another question here about, you mentioned becoming a notary public there. Do you think that has helped your immigration business, or has it drawn any more traffic to come in then and deal with immigration, or has it had no effect on your business overall?
I would say not as of yet that much. Yes, I did promote on my social media that I have become a notary. I got few of my clients who needed the service that I provided the service for them. Um, I wouldn't say that much yet. I just got my seal like about a month and a half ago. And for a month and a half, it hasn't really happened much with regards to the notary. It's a good thing to have because many documents need to be notarized, like for all types of applications that you do, either even preparing an affidavit, certifying something to be a true copy. I would say that it would be helpful for immigration purposes if anyone from my clients needs that type of service in order to submit the application. I wouldn't have to send them somewhere else to get that done. They can do it with me together with the rest of the documents that we'll be preparing.
Now you're based out of the Kitchener-Waterloo area there, and certainly we're looking with one of the changes here with the pandemic is that you can essentially be everywhere now, because I mean, certainly with immigration, that's always been true with clients coming to you from all over the world. Do you think maintaining kind of a physical office is still important these days, or should be people switching to working from home in the immigration business in particular?
I would say that it's good to have a physical office. The way I'm working at the moment is having kind of like a remote office. You can rent it out, and they have number of locations within Ontario, let's say, and you can rent out an office. Let's say I'm going down to Toronto to meet with people. They have offices downtown, and I need the office for an hour or two. I can book the office, meet with a client. I do work physically from home nowadays, but I do have my business registered at the office, and that is the address that appears on all my marketing materials, my business cards, my um, obviously it wouldn't be very practical if someone walks into that address and asks for me. I wouldn't be physically there at that point. They will take a message, but I won't be able to take on that um, walking client right away. This is again coming down to managing your finances. And I did move out to Kitchener about a year ago when I started my business, and it hasn't been what I was expecting because of COVID, but everyone is managing in their own way. But definitely, I would say having an address somewhere where they, your clients can send email, their mail, or whatever they need to send you some documents. um, you don't want your clients to know your personal address. You don't want them popping at your door during dinner time, right? So that's the main thing. And at the beginning it was funny because I was dealing with so many things, and at one point I just ordered my business cards and I put my home address on there. So they came and I'm like, that's not a good idea. So whatever, I spent like some money on 500 business cards with which are going down the drain right now. But you learn from your mistakes.
Now, were you always drawn to immigration? I know you started by doing the paralegal licensing process before then doing the immigration, but was that something that you kind of came into afterwards when you mentioned your opportunities that you were working, or was that something you initially had, and you thought maybe I could do this plus the other stuff in the paralegal scope, and then realized just want to focus on it?
No, immigration came into me going and studying for it and getting licensed after I had spent probably about 3, 4 months with that firm where I did my placement for the paralegal. And just was the immigration department, and it was very interesting how everything was happening. I would say probably in immigration, the turnaround time for decision on an application, it's much quicker than an accident case. Like they're dragging them for years, and it's hard because let's say accidents and slip and falls, we're talking about people's like physical lives there. That's and it gets very emotional. You have to have the right set of mind to deal with something like that, I would say. But no, I got into immigration after I had completed my paralegal education. And I'm an immigrant myself, so was my parents. And it's very it's nice when you can help someone. I've had many clients that have been misled by either consultants that are not licensed that just post themselves as consultants, and they've been given wrong advice, and they spend so much money and time, because at one point time does count as well, um, and they've ended up nowhere, which is sad.
Now you mentioned, you and your family immigrating here. Do you think with your clients, do you tend to draw upon people from your community, or is it kind of all over the world, or is that an advantage? Certainly, being able to communicate in a different language for your immigration business.
I would say so. So this year, I for first time I decided to go back home. I'm from Bulgaria, which is in Europe, and I decided to make that trip not only personal but business as well. So I did advertise way in advance where I'm gonna be, how long I'm gonna spend. I hit the few main cities like the capital city, and I would say that it is definitely beneficial if you speak another language. I do try to promote myself here within the local Facebook groups that they have for people from my background, and I would definitely say that it has been beneficial that I speak another language and that I can communicate with my own community in native language, or even the business travel that I did back home. I'm at the time it was only consultations. Now it's slowly people are putting their documents together and they're looking forward to starting the process. I also joined many Facebook groups for people with my background in the States, in England, and that has also brought me quite a few clients for just putting my name out there and letting them know that they can call me and communicate freely in their own language.
And do you often get questions about what it's like in Canada? Maybe people who are considering it but they're not sure, and because you've made that switch yourself, that you can kind of draw upon your own experiences here, in contrast to some of the things in Bulgaria that may be different, that they should get acclimatized with.
Yes, most of the time for people who haven't been in North America, I would say, would ask such questions, because people that have been in the States, it's pretty much the same here, right? For people that have been in Europe and other parts of the world, yes, they would ask the question, what is it like in Canada? How is the snow? How is employment? What is the climate? And it's kind of strange, because when you start explaining them that from one side of Canada to the other side of Canada, they may be like 3, 4, 5 hours difference. People are kind of shocked because it's a huge country, right? But but yes, they do ask many questions about, like, if even if they have children, they would ask like, would my child be able to go to kindergarten, or like how would they attend school? If there are older kids that need to attend college or university, you have to. So I, through the years, I've gathered enough information based on my experience to be able to guide them. At least if I don't know the answer for sure, then I would guide them to like a appropriate website, or give them a list of some universities within the province that they're interested in. If if it's part of a consultation, I even take on upon myself to do a slight research for a particular topic that they may be interested in, so I can give them as much as information possible. Because obviously, you need to sell yourself, and the more detailed you are, the more possibility is that this person would come to you because they see that you're going above and beyond to serve them.
Another question here from one of the students about software. And again, I'm not very familiar with this, but do you use Officio or Quick Immigrant software for CRM? And what do you recommend if you, what are you using?
At the current moment, I am not using any software besides like using OneDrive of my as my storage, and obviously a backup. I have used Officio for about 5 years at the firm where I was working. Um, I would say that if you're just starting up, if you're good with Excel and keeping records, probably you won't really need that, because it is quite expensive. And when you're working on a budget, probably a software wouldn't be a thing to go. I am a member of KPIC as well. I'm not sure if everyone knows about KPIC. They do have some softwares online, and I believe if they're not free, they're probably at a very discounted rate. So I do suggest, and there's very useful platforms and forms that they have once you become a member. I just became a member this year, and it's a very great organization to be part of.
Another question, I guess, related to sort of where your clients or you're seeing our clients coming from. Do you have any clients from the United States? In light of maybe over the last 4 years, or maybe even very recently with not being happy there, wanting to move from the U.S. to Canada, or again, are you still seeing it concentrated in Europe there from your own experience?
I do have clients, especially in the past 5 6 years. Yes, I've had clients from the States. Mainly, they were under family class sponsorships, or coming to Canada as workers. So, from the past couple of months, not being happy and want to move to Canada, no, I haven't really heard many clients. I do have a lot of Bulgarian potential clients who are in the States, but they're kind of stuck because of not having a legal status, and we're working on figuring out a program or how it's going to work for them to leave the country, apply for something, and come to Canada. But that's a risk that they're taking, because obviously at the end of the day, the decision for an application is in the hands of an immigration officer. Yes, you're going to do your due diligence, and you're going to prepare an application that meets the requirements. But if there's something also that the client hasn't disclosed to you, such as refused visas elsewhere, some criminality, then you might be stuck, or they do not pass their medicals, which is one of the requirements to immigrate to Canada.
I just wanted to pause if anyone else, any of the other students had any other questions before we could continue on.
Yeah.
And certainly if you want, you could unmute and just ask directly if anybody's interested. or you can continue to post there in the chat. Right. So I know you mentioned you have an assistant from time to time. Have you taken any either immigration students or paralegal students as interns at any point?
No, unfortunately not. From the beginning of the year until now, I have not. And based on my experience in the past with me being an intern student, I know that you have to be supervised by a licensed professional. I'm not sure what the requirements are at this current time for from the college, how it works with the whole pandemic. And because if, let's say, I'm working out of home, obviously I wouldn't want anyone coming into my house, right, for the purpose of safety. But if someone would like to reach out to me and they can provide me with more details about how the requirements will work out with their college and with COVID, I'm looking, like, I don't mind discussing that.
Another thing, in terms of a lot of the immigration, certainly they're not as long as some of the court matters, but there's a lot of waiting, right? Once you've completed the application, essentially it becomes a waiting game. Maybe there's some additional documentation needed. How do you advise or how do you deal with clients who maybe aren't the most patient about wanting an update? And again, you also want to make sure you're maintaining contact and communication so they know that if there is any update, you've provided it to them.
Sorry, and the question is how I maintain
the client relationship and sort of keep them abreast of what's going on with again, with a lot is at stake, right, that they're hoping to come to Canada.
I wouldn't say that reaching out to the client like once a month, maybe that's the proper way of doing it, from different webinars, let's say, we've listened to, or I have. But no, I wouldn't say that I would reach out to the client once a month, but probably once every 3 months. If there hasn't been an update, I tell them where we stand. Obviously, if there has been any kind of change on the application, for example, online applications for permanent residents, you get notified of a change like every time there is one. So I reach out to the client and let them know what's happening with the application, what has taken place. And all my clients know that I'm available through all types of social media. They can reach out to me anytime. I've told them, though, that past, like, let's say 10 p.m., do not call me. Like, I do put my phone on silence, because if you don't, your phone will be ringing 24/7, because the people overseas, they're eager to know what's happening with their application, but 4 or 5 hours until the morning, until you get up, they're not going to change anything. So
that involves saying these are the business hours I can be reached at. And again, depending on where you're in the world, it may not necessarily be a 9 to 5 kind of schedule. So they just have to adapt to it.
Well, usually my office hours and the way they're posted on Google and on my social media are from 9 to 6, Monday to Friday. Obviously, if I'm working on some kind of application that it needs to meet a deadline, if I have to call the client, but the thing is, in that situation, I'm the one that's eager to get this done and meet that deadline. It was funny, while I was on my business trip in Bulgaria, one night we had gone out with friends and we're just having dinner, and it was hitting close to midnight. And one of my clients, he was so not responsive to my requests. And I told him, I'm like, you need to provide this to me before midnight, because we're missing a deadline. So he provided to me at like 11:45, and we're sitting with friends good thing I was lucky I was able to manage everything through my phone and submit the application. But at times there are clients like that are not quick on getting back to you with information or with documents, and you still need to be pushy. You need to be pushy because at the end of the day, if that doesn't get done, they'll come back to you and they'll be like, well, it's your fault you didn't submit it, even though they didn't provide information on time.
And so how do you deal with that? I mean, I'm sure you've certainly had your share of successful applications, but what happens if Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada come back and say, sorry, we're not going to process this application? How do you kind of have that discussion with your client about what the issue might be, and to reassure them that we did the best that we could?
Yes, I've had situations like that, and to tell you the truth, I haven't really had clients that won't understand. I've never had a client that I would say to them, not in my personal practice, not in my firm when I was when I was working for the firm. I would never tell a client, I guarantee you success, because you cannot guarantee a success. It's not in your power to approve or reject an application. So I've had applications where they've been either sent back because of typo, and I'm talking about a check mark on the form, it's missing, and they're sending the whole application back. It doesn't do anything besides losing time, like you might have lost 2, 3 months. If an application has been refused, we review the reasons, we request additional information from the government in order to see what is the bottom line. And this usually happens with humanitarian compassionate applications, because it's very hard to convince an officer that this particular applicant needs to stay in Canada.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Luba, for taking the time and joining us here today. Perhaps you can share some final words of advice for my paralegal students who are either maybe looking to get into becoming immigration consultants and more doing with the application side, or to just do what's within the paralegal scope, and which may also change down the road with respect to stuff at the Immigration Refugee Board. So any final words of advice with respect to immigration and getting into immigration? And if anyone wants to reach you, how can they do so?
I would suggest to everyone who is in the program for either paralegal or immigration consultants, again, to repeat myself, go out into like applying to firms and start working there first. It may be even 1 or 2 years experience that you gain there, but it's going to be your most valuable experience. I feel even after having 5 years of experience in the firm, starting my own business, and in that firm, I was not only a consultant, I was not only a legal assistant there. I got involved in dealing and working closely with the accounting department, with the marketing department, and that came down to be beneficial now. Obviously, you may not have the opportunity in the firm that you go, but go ahead, gain your experience, get whatever you can from your colleagues, because I'm sure they're coworkers that could give you a lot of knowledge and share their experience. And once you feel ready, then just plan ahead and make sure that you have a good start amount finances to start your business, and um, just dream about it and follow that, because obviously it's a risk. And trust me, starting a business during a pandemic, nobody knew it's gonna take place. It hasn't been very easy, but I've tried to stay positive and try to reassure my clients as well, because the people that have trusted me with their stories and their lives, and I really do value my clients, and I try to provide best services for them and for them to receive quality. And the very key thing with clients, doesn't matter in what field, in what if you're working for yourself or for a firm, that's what I've noticed. When a client is reaching out to you, at least acknowledge their call, their email. If you can't talk to them or you cannot respond to their email in detail, just be like, I'll get back to you within a day or 2 days, but make sure you meet that deadline. Don't leave them hanging for 2, for 3, for 4 days without responding to their request, because they're not going to be happy.
Perfect. Thank you so much again for taking the time to join us. And I wish you all the best with your practice, and
I
take
will
care.
provide my email and in the chat, and whoever has any additional questions, I'll be more than happy to address them at a different day or time.
Perfect. Yeah, I see a couple of things that just came in now, so perhaps they can reach out to you there and get those answers as well. So all the best. Thank you so much, Luba, and
Thank
thank you
you.
everyone for
Have
tuning in today.
yourself a good night. And it was, I want to thank Rizal that invited me to be a guest speaker for you guys.
You're
Perfect. Yes,
welcome,
thanks.
and
Thank you so much, Rochelle, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
it's my pleasure. Thank you again, Luba, and thank you,
You're
Ash.
most welcome. Have yourself a good night, everyone.
Have a pleasant night. Thank you, JP. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye now.